Okay, here we have our notes for LG4. We already learned how to graph an equation in slope-intercept form. So the number in the back is representing your y-intercept, which at this point is at 2. So I'm going to put a point right here at 2. And from then on, I can count my slope, which is the rise over run, from that point on. So I'm going to go 1 up and 1, 2, 3 over. And I could theoretically do it as often as I want, so I have enough points until I can clearly see my straight line over here. And then you're going to connect it with a ruler as good as you can. My ruler here right now is not going to look any pretty, but you're going to get the picture. This is what we already know from the slope-intercept method. This time we're having a slope-intercept, which is a fraction. So I don't know exactly where 2/3 is. I can only estimate it. So the slope-intercept in this scenario is not very helpful to me. So the only thing I just need to change is I need to find a point that is a nice whole number x and a nice whole number y, so I can graph that point, and then I can still count my slope from the point that I found. So remember, when we have slope-intercept form with two fractions, we have to try out which point will work. In this case, my denominator is 3, so I know it can only be 1 or 2, which will make my whole expression a whole number. So if I would plug in 1 for x, I would have 1 times 1/3, which is 1/3, and 1/3 plus 2/3 is 3/3. So actually 1 will work as one of my points. So if x is 1, then y is 1. I found a whole number point which I can plot right here, 1, 1. And now instead of counting my slope from the y-intercept, I can count my slope from the point that I found. So I'm going to go up 1 and then 1, 2, 3 over, and up 1 and 3 over. And again, I can do this as often as I want to do it until I have a nice straight line. And I'm going to connect it now. You will do this with a ruler. I'm going to do it as best as I can here on the computer. And now you can see the y-intercept is about by 2/3. My line is not completely straight. So anytime that you have an equation given where you have both fractions, your y-intercept cannot be graphed correctly, so you have to find an additional point. Okay, let's do a few more problems together. Okay, so in this case, my equation is given in standard form. We already know to be able to graph it, I need to rearrange my equation, make it equal to y. In this case, I would subtract my 2x on both sides, which then cancels out, leaves me with a 3y. And I'm going to put my negative 2x first, because that's going to be my slope, and then I still have a negative 2. And now I'm going to divide everything by 3. And then my equation will be y equals negative 2/3 x minus 2/3. And again, I ended up with having a slope and a y-intercept both as a fraction. So I can't graph my y-intercept. I have to find an additional point from which I can then graph. Again, my denominator is 3. So it would be either 1 or 2, which will work. Let's try out. If I plug in 1, I'm going to have negative 2/3 times 1, which is negative 2/3, minus 2/3 is negative 4/3, which will not give me a whole number, so 1 will not work. Let's try out 2. Negative 2/3 times 2 is negative 4/3, minus 2/3 is negative 6/3, which is the same as saying negative 2. So my point is 2, negative 2, which is right here. And from this point, I can count my slope. My slope is -2/3, so I'm going to go down 2 and 3 over. And I'm going to do it a few times to get a clear picture on how the line is going to go. In this case, it actually continues. Here's my pattern like this. And I can draw my line. Okay, let's make a little bit room here. And let's look at another example together. I'm going to rearrange to solve my equation for y. So I'm going to subtract the 3x on both sides, which then gives me 5y equals -3x plus 2. And now I'm going to divide everything by 5, which then gives me -3/5 x plus 2/5. This time my denominator is 5, so I need to check all numbers smaller than 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, to check which of those numbers will give me a whole number for x and y. Let's plug in. I'm going to go with 1, -3/5 plus 2/5 is -1/5. 1 doesn't work. 2, -3/5 times 2 is -6/5. Plus 2/5 is -4/5, is not helpful either. Let's plug in 3, then we have -9/5 plus 2/5 is -7/5, doesn't work either. 4, -3/5 times 4 is -12/5, plus 2/5 is -10/5. 4 will work. If I plug in 4, I'm going to get -2 for my y. Here's a whole number point at 4, -2. And from that point on, I'm going to count my slope, which is 3 down and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over. I'm going to go the opposite way just to have an additional point. Now I have enough points. I'm going to take my ruler. I'm going to connect to a nice straight line. Okay, so this was the LG4 notes. Remember, anytime your y-intercept is a fraction, you cannot use it to plot it. You have to find one additional point that will give you a whole number for x and y. And then from that point on, you can count your slope.